going live.
We are live.
3, 2. No, we already hit play. All right, so this is the first recording of Gen H. Better name to be disclosed later.
What does Gen H stand for?
Well, let me explain. Gen H is short for Generation Hustle.
Oh,
Yeah. No, because on this channel, what we're going to be talking about is any and everything hustle related, right? So anything that's going to get money coming in, anything that has a lot of effort going out in order for you to kind of like be a more wealthy, well-rounded, just kind of like, I don't know, more income individual.
Financially free. I mean, there's...
Exactly. So just anything. I mean, anything from whether it's real estate or it's stock or it's just side hustles that you can do on the weekends or after work hours, or that side hustle to eventually become like a full-time gig. So that's what we're going to be talking about on this channel. This is the first episode. So what we'll do shortly is introduce ourselves. So we'll start with Daryl and then just kind of work our way over.
Cool. So I'm Daryl Parker, investor. I do fix and flip, rental properties, short-term rentals, long-term rentals, a little bit of note buying and stuff like that. So,
yep, and my name is Dylan, and I do kind of the same thing as Daryl, except I don't flip as many. I like to keep them and refinance them. But yeah, it's a couple short-term rentals, a lot of long-term rentals, and a few flips every here and there.
And what I do is I'm more of a hustler. No. So I'm also the same thing. I also buy rental properties. I do Airbnbs, so short terms. We're looking into doing long-term rentals, like corporate type stuff. But then we also flip some properties too. And since we do this as a family, it's a small family business, it's gotta get that money coming in. So anything hustle related, we're making it happen. So we're gonna start with on episode 1, since we're all in real estate and we all invest into both long-term and short-term rental properties. A topic that usually comes up in newbie investors that kind of come up to us is all about how to analyze the market that you're looking to buy a rental property in, right? So you have something that comes on the MLS, you have something that a wholesaler, which we'll describe in just a bit, a wholesaler comes up to you and says, hey, I have a house on the market. How do you determine if that house is a good, viable option for you to buy? Whether it's the numbers of the house itself, whether it's the neighborhood that it's in, whether it's the pricing altogether, just all these factors have to come into play. And obviously we're doing it on a regular basis. I mean, some of us are doing it daily, twice a day, just analyzing deals that come our way, and then we determine quickly what works and what doesn't work, or at least based on our own thresholds. And we'll definitely that's Merlot. He's our sidekick. He's gonna be showing up every once in a while. Maybe eventually we'll do a feature on him. But it's essentially kind of breaking down how we each analyze our own deals, because we're all doing it very differently, right? Daryl's doing it in a very different market than, say, Dylan and I, but he's also doing some commercial stuff. I mean, he has a very different kind of approach, and it might just be given to his like what he has is at his disposal, right? Dylan also, he's been in the game for a lot longer. He has a different approach just based on his threshold, right? What he accepts is what, his leverage position, or just like the neighborhoods, or whether it's the amount of money that he's going to be investing. And then I have my own threshold. So the way we kind of figured it is that all three of us have very different approaches. We all invest very differently, but we're all kind of in the same industry. So it's a way to kind of present that no matter where you are or what your personal thresholds are, there's no right or wrong way. So I guess the first question is, what is a rental market analysis? What is it in general? And then what does that look like? Like, what are your steps to go through it, right? So market rental analysis is just like, how are you analyzing the market that you're in, or the market for the deal that's been presented to you? Like, without getting into specifics, like, how are you just like quickly in your head getting through that, and how did you eventually get to that point?
So to get to that point, you really, I like to go by neighborhood or by small area, because the smaller the area, you're going to get the best comps. pretty much in comps. That's going to be what the houses sold for when they were completely renovated and what they sold for cash, because you also want to know that in order to analyze the deal properly. You want to know what people are paying cash for, and then what the regular, I guess, mom and pops are paying when they buy that house as their forever home. You want to know what they pay on the end buyer as well. So you really want to go through and know square footage per dollar, beds, baths, all of that good stuff to know what really to analyze, to even where to start. Because once you get that to start, then...
So what makes that stronger? So if say you're looking at dollar per square foot, bed, bath, like what are you looking at to determine, like what resources are you looking at?
So you have so many resources. I mean, with our cell phones and everything, we have you got Trulia, you got Redfin, you got Zillow. You really have county websites to go on to be able to tell what tax assessments are.
And that's free. That's free.
That's
So
all free information.
Yeah.
So it doesn't cost you anything to analyze these deals. You can go through, and once you get the lead, or you find a house that you want to be a lead, you can go through and you can get their information from there. You can get what houses sold for in the neighborhood, pretty much everything at your fingertips.
And a good practice that he's kind of alluding to is you'll find houses that come on the market, say on the MLS, right? Just on Zillow, Redfin, Trulia, so these different websites. A good practice is maybe to like just analyze them as they sit on the market.
Yeah.
So without feeling like there's the pressure, the stress, because as you get more experience in this market, like the faster things go, and it'll never be too fast, right? Especially when a good deal is available. So a good practice that he's really pointing out, kind of insinuating, is that Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, all these different, they have houses that come on the market that are inexpensive that you can analyze given county data, given the comps that have already sold, just like look at the surrounding area and then just kind of go based on that. Because that is what lenders are going off of, right? So we'll eventually talk about rentals and like how banks are looking at that. But like they look at comps, they look at competing assets.
And not only that, but you really don't go and look at the Zestimate that Zillow tells you. You want to take all of these apps and platforms and turn them into your own numbers, because what Zillow says the Zestimate is probably not what it's actually going to sell for or could list for. Because that is only one piece of the big pie, because you really want to go through all of the data to tell you what it's going to
as much data as you can, and that data is going to be very limited maybe at the beginning, but then you'll have more conversations with other people that are doing the same thing, and then you'll start to add more tools to your tool belt. So Dylan, you've been doing it for quite a while. How did you get to your like ideal rental market analysis kind of situation, like your Rolodex of what you're going through when you're analyzing a deal? How'd you get to that, and what are you doing?
So first, when I look at properties, I look at way to either add a bathroom or add a bedroom to the property, because that increases the value significantly. Because appraisers now compare, if you add a bathroom, now they'll be comparing the 2 bathrooms with other 2 bathrooms that sold, which can really boost up the value of the property, whether you're going to flip it or whether you're going to refinance it. To figure out what it can rent for, it's super easy after that. You just go on Zillow, look for rent houses in the area, and it'll kind of tell you what houses or how much you can get for that house. So if you have a 2-bedroom, 2-bath house, you look on Zillow, if there's another 2-bedroom, 2-bath house within half a mile to a mile, you can, and it's ready for $1,400, you can determine that yours can rent for about $1,400. But if yours is nicer than that, has more amenities, has granite countertops, nicer cabinets, maybe comes with a washer dryer, you can rent for even more than that, $1,500 to $1,600. Once you figure that out, then you go to the bank, refinance it, pull that money out, and take that out.
I was going to say, I mean, we could go on and on about that, because a lot of people don't know you can get 75% on your appraised value. So what he's talking about is get them to pay the back. He will actually go to the bank and get them to pay his hard money lender who loaned him the money to buy the house. So,
and that's really how we've all grown our portfolio.
Yes.
Right? And now there's been a term that's been coined as BRRRR.
BRRRR.
Right?
Yeah. It's cold in here.
It's buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat. So it's something that's been coined, but it's been done for a long time. And now there's different products out there that are specifically almost like targeting just that, which is awesome. So never feel like you're limited to like what your resources are and what you have to do or how much money you have, because we're not all working just off of cash that we have. That we just always have an extra like $30,000 or $40,000 to like put into a house, and then that's how we're getting our houses. It's not. We're essentially it's a use, rinse, and repeat.
And we all came from different backgrounds. Like I know when I started, I didn't have but $2,000 or $3,000 when I got started, and turned that into what it is now.
Yeah.
And I don't know about Dylan or you, Carlos, but I didn't start with much money at all.
It's just constantly doing that process that really got me going, because I was able to buy, even starting at one house at a time, bought a house, fixed it up, put a little bit of money into it, went to the bank to refinance it, got all of my money back out, take that money, put it in another house. Eventually, if you do that enough times, you could start doing 2 houses at once, and then 3 houses at once, and then you have enough reserves, and you're also getting rental income from all those houses.
And something that Dylan once mentioned to me that it didn't really hit until he said it was, when you buy a house that's deeply discounted, right? It can be on the MLS, or there's other resources, right? Wholesalers, which are people who go out and scout sellers who are looking to just unload their properties or sell their properties essentially as quickly as possible for whatever reason. I mean, it could be in distress, they could be facing foreclosures, they could have had a parent that died and they're in a position where they own it and they don't want another property, right? Because they live several states away or whatever the case is. Yeah. These wholesalers find these deals, negotiate with the sellers to something that's agreeable to everybody, right? And then they come to people like us, and we've just happened to become really good friends with a lot of them. We tend to get on lists for a lot of them and just like kind of really keep those relationships. But eventually those wholesalers will reach out to us, and then we can find those deals at a deeply discounted rate, right? So I'll give you a really simple example. If the house eventually sells for, at the end, because of comps and the analysis we've done, if the house is selling for $100,000, most of us are trying to buy it at like 50%, right?
Easily.
I mean, it sounds kind of crazy, but there are those margins there. So when we buy it for 50% off, and then we invest, say, $25,000 into it, as Daryl was saying, banks will then go around and lend you 75% of the value of the property. So now you can pull essentially all your money back. There's cost in there, like closing costs and a lot of things that we'll get into. We'll make a video on that too. But there's a lot of other costs that you need to factor in that you might need to keep in the deal, right? But like, let's say that you have to keep $10,000 in the deal, right?
Who would not love to buy a house for $10,000? Let's be real.
And one thing is like, and something that Dylan once mentioned is like, even at 10%, at $10,000 that you have to leave in the house on a $100,000 house, that's 10%, right?
10%.
And if you're buying a second home or an investment property,
they're making you put 20% down.
Yeah, exactly. So like, it's still, I mean, you're still ahead. Sure, you have to leave money in it, but you still leave.
You still have equity in the house too. So you still have 50. In that case, if you're buying it for 75, or if it's worth 100, you have 85 into it. You still have $15,000 of equity at the end of the day. So
I mean, let's be real. Who's going to give you a house for free? If you have $10,000 into a house and it makes you $500 per month, that's a win. There is no lose in that situation, because you don't just put $10,000 in the stock market and expect to get $500 back every month. This just doesn't happen.
Tons of other benefits. You get principal pay down every month. You get appreciation of the property every month. You also get the tax write-offs, and then also you get the rental income from the cash flow, which is all that together. You know, is just amazing.
Yeah,
tax system's built for real estate, in my opinion.
You
get so many write-offs.
I mean, you got to think there's a lot of taxes that the normal person just really doesn't get unless you do, and you can even get write-offs on your W-2 job for having real estate.
It
doesn't just go for us self-employed guys. Like, it counts for W-2 employees as well.
Yeah. Now, if you're flipping houses like Daryl here, you might have a large tax bill, but
regardless, you're gonna pay on this.
Tax go rich. Tax go rich. Awesome. All right. So another question that we had was, and this is a pretty simple question, but sometimes it gets a little confusing, is how are you pricing or define price per square foot? right? Because you mentioned that earlier in your
Yes.
answer, right? So like that's obviously one of the factors that you're considering.
Yes.
Adding a bedroom or adding a bathroom is really simple to understand.
Yep.
But like, how are you determining price per square foot, and how are you using that to determine how do you buy? Like, how are you going to sell it? Like,
All right.
how are
so
you using that data?
just a little bit of an example. Say your house is worth $200,000, completely renovated, new floors, paint, sheetrock, appliances, all of that. And you're 1,000 square foot rancher selling for $200,000. That means you're $200 a square foot. Meaning I want to buy it for $100 a square foot, put the extra $25 per square foot into it, and now I'm at my 75% of where I want to be. But so price per square foot is based off of solely your square footage per how much that house is going to sell for, and you just divide the two, and that's what you come up with. You get price per square foot, and every neighborhood has a different price per square foot. There's not this neighborhood, it might be 200, this neighborhood might be 150, this neighborhood might be $100 a square foot. It just, you have to really run, and that's why I say when you run your numbers, make your size neighborhood smaller rather than larger,
Yeah.
because you might be playing into a different neighborhood 2 miles down the road that could be $150 a square foot, and it kind of drop yours, even though yours could be up here.
Yeah, because that's what banks are doing, or banks, especially if you're selling or if you're renting and you're refinancing. I mean, that circle, that radius of how they're analyzing or using the comps on your house starts really small,
Really small.
right?
Yep.
So they start as small as possible, and they look in that area to see how that comp, are there other comps that are like that, right? Are there other houses that are a 2-1 that look and are similar size to yours? So that's why price per square foot is so important, because if you're selling a 1,000 square foot house and then you're surrounded by 2,000 square feet houses, like the comps are going to be very different. They really can't do a fair comparison, right? So like they're going to go outside of that. So in that type of scenario, like they're not going to look at your $1,000 square foot house and the 2,000 square foot house and be like, oh,
Yes.
yeah, we're going to match it.
They're going to
because
match
it's the
three
same.
bed,
It's not.
3.1 baths, 1,200 square feet. They're going to kind of keep it very similar.
Yeah, they're going to try to keep it as similar as possible. So they're going to increase, or they're going to build out on that radius as time kind of goes on. So is there anything you wanted to add on a price per square foot?
Yeah, so basically, if you're buying a 2,000, but to your point, if you're buying a 2,000 square foot house, or you're buying a 1,000 square foot house, and there's a 2,000 square foot house that sold for 200,000, let's say, that doesn't necessarily mean yours is worth 100,000 square
Correct.
feet, because there's a lot of fixed costs into building a house in the first place. Typically, when I refinance properties, I do look really in deep in the appraisal reports, and appraisers like to, based on the price of the house, but usually if you're working with the $200,000 houses, they'll deduct $60 per square foot, or add $60 per square foot the more you have.
Gotcha.
Now, if you're in like the 100,000 range, they'll only add $30 per square foot. So they do take into consideration the pouring the foundation, the permits, and everything, run the electric, the water into consideration, and you have to also take that into consideration when you're doing finding the value at the end of the day.
Yeah, so building additions, all that kind of stuff. To his point, and that's experience talking, right? Like you've seen it enough. You've seen enough appraisal reports, and you're digging through the numbers. It's not a winging it thing.
No, you don't wing it. Trust me. That's how you're going to get in trouble in this game.
Yeah.
You start winging things.
Yeah. So for me, same thing. I mean, I'm just kind of like adding on to whatever information you guys are given, but that's pretty much it. So for your math guys out there, it's your denominator is your selling price, right? And your your numerator is your selling price, and your denominator is your square feet.
I was going to say,
Right.
on the next episode, we're going to need a dry erase.
Yeah,
We're sketching out for you.
All right, so we have that, and then we also have what do you look for when you're evaluating a neighborhood? Are you looking, or either one of you guys looking into like schools, the rating of schools, proximity to like major roads, grocery stores, or is it really just hey, I'm buying it at a decent price, I'm looking at the comps, I can make money on it, I'm not really kind of, and you can look at it both ways, because I know you do a lot of flips, but
Yeah.
So flipping is one way, and then
Yeah.
as a rental, it might be a completely different kind of outlook on how
Yes.
you're analyzing.
Yeah.
So do you want to break both
So
of those down?
I agree that I look at those things, but I don't know if that's like a deciding factor for me because it really depends on your play. Is it long term? Is it
Yeah.
short term rental? Because Airbnb short term rental, it doesn't matter what the school systems are. You can be in the worst school district, but as long as you're in a decent area and your house rents near corporate buildings, you're still going to be renting.
Yeah.
So that part doesn't necessarily matter. I do think it does matter for long-term rentals because if they're coming and you're over a 3-bedroom house, a 4 or 5-bedroom house, 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a family.
Yeah.
Most families have under 18-year-old kids, meaning they're going to need to be in that school district, and they're probably not going to choose a school district that they don't necessarily like. So I do say it plays in.
So if somebody brings a house to you that
Yep.
is a good deal,
Yep.
40% off, 50% off, and you're seeing that of the school district,
Yes.
is that gonna influence then if you're gonna hold it as a rental opposed to like sell it?
I'd say it matters. I don't know if it matters that much as in I'm going to sell it versus hold it,
Yeah.
but I do think it matters.
Okay.
So what determines you whether to sell it or hold it?
Yeah, is it
Uh,
purchase price? Is it
So if I'm
square
in that
feet? Is it-
75% range, that's kind of
Okay.
where I am.
So if you can get all your cash
If I
back,
can get close to all my cash back and I know the rent, like you said, there's multiple factors. So if my rent is $1,500 and I can be all in for $120,000, probably gonna rent that and keep it just
Yeah,
because it's gonna cash flow no matter what.
Yeah,
just
yeah.
based off of that.
But then that also means then that it would make for a really good flip.
Yeah,
Right,
so that's the problem
like if
with
it
this
cash
business.
flows and
Yeah.
if you can refinance
Yeah.
and pull a lot of that money out, that also means that if you were to sell it,
You're
you could
making
also
$60,000,
pull
$70,000
yeah, you could
cash.
also pull a lot of money out.
Yeah. So it goes both ways because every house that I keep would make a great flip.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they all make great flips. But you have to, for me, I'm in a position to where I'm thinking long term and not short term.
Yeah.
That's really it for me.
Yeah,
I have
yeah, there's been a
kids
big
now,
shift
so
in
it's a
yeah.
different mindset because I want to leave them something.
Yeah.
And not only that, but I want to be able to spend as much time with them. And this is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
This frees up your time at this
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
The
yeah.
more cash flow and rentals you have, the more time you get
Exactly.
back.
Exactly.
So
Yeah. What about you, Billy?
you're in
Like,
a
what do
good
you- what do you-
position. Yeah. like-
so for me, all my houses are in the Richmond area, and obviously all the school districts are pretty rough there anyway. So literally for me, I pay zero attention to schools.
Yeah.
And now if it's on the suburbs of Richmond, actually I still don't pay attention to schools. All I look at
you better send your kid to private school with him.
I probably should if it starts to get those nice areas, but for me, I just look at the comps. If I see a house that's selling for 200,000, and I can make good money, I'll sell it for 200,000, and I don't care about the school districts. If someone's willing to buy that house for 200, and I make it the same, most likely someone's going to be willing to buy mine for 200.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it.
I agree.
Um,
Yeah, because your comps still never lie. So whatever your comps put you at,
Yeah.
regardless of the school systems, you ran your comps for that neighborhood in that school system.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
That are you,
regardless of the
right?
school.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like Dylan because, like, regardless of the schools, right? I'm basing myself on comps.
Yeah.
So schools are important, sure. But as a seller, if all the houses in that entire subdivision are selling for $300,000,
Then you got a $300,000.
then I have a $300,000 house, right? So, like, obviously, I don't know, 100 families decided that
yeah.
$300,000 was a good price point in that school district. Who am I to be like, no, I think it's going to be worth $250 because I don't like the school district.
yeah.
Yeah.
No,
Those are
there-
crappy
there's
schools.
The market's
Yeah.
the market.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, like when I'm evaluating, am I looking at neighborhoods like Dylan? Most, especially actively in Noun, all we're buying is in Richmond. So like we're looking just like 15-minute vicinity of Richmond, and same thing. I mean, the schools aren't great. Most of the people that are kind of moving into the city are either going to private school or some sort of like Montessori or something like that. I mean, if they're not and they're just going to public, that's fine. I mean, I'm kind of factoring my numbers, whether it's a rental or if it's a flip, just based on the comps and is it going to cash flow and am I going to make money on the back end? Not necessarily schools. So I'm not really looking at that.
So do you think on a percentage basis, good school districts appreciate more than non-good school
That's a good
districts?
question.
Yeah, I think that it does make for a stronger rental.
Stronger
Right.
rental, but do you
Yeah.
think you'll like I guess $500,000 will go to 550 in 1 year
Faster,
versus
yeah.
100 going to
Do you
110.
think so?
So I think so, but it's also
It depends on the neighborhood too, because some of the neighborhoods push for it to go up in appreciation as well.
Yeah.
So, and they might not be in great school districts, but they got
Yeah.
good neighborhood bones or people leading the
Yeah.
neighborhood in the right direction.
I mean, you could see some of these houses in Richmond went from 100 to like 180 probably in
Yeah.
3 or 4 years. But those $500,000 houses, they might have went to 900 actually, but I don't think all of them did. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you could look at it that way, like a house, how long does it take for a house to double in one area versus the higher priced areas? But I don't know. They might be on the same.
I would say the lower side probably double faster.
Yeah, maybe.
Because your $100,000 house goes to 180.
It
I
could
mean,
be
you look
pretty
at the
quick.
last 10 years. The last 10 years, $100,000 houses 10 years
Yeah.
ago are now 180, 200.
yeah, not even 10 years ago. I would say like
Yeah,
I would
like
argue
7.
like 3-4 years ago.
Yeah.
No, like less than that.
True, very true. Yeah. So we're in a weird time right now.
So one thing I will say to his point, like sure you could also like play on the appreciation, right?
Yeah.
But for me, the holding cost of a loan that big and betting on
Right.
appreciation. So I think it really just depends on like where you are in your investing, right?
Agreed,
Like
yeah.
if we're being aggressive, which I feel like we all are because of the market, because of the times, and we're trying to like beat out the clock almost. I think we're just not necessarily playing off of appreciation.
But to go into that a little bit more, what house prices are you buying at? Like, what are your price ranges when you're buying? Are you under? Because I'm sub 200. I want to
Yeah.
I want to be buying under 200,
Yeah.
and I want my appraisal value to be really under 250, 275.
Yeah, so I'm like that. So I bought my first house over 200 like 2 weeks ago. First house ever
Same
over
here.
200. Yeah,
Wow.
2 weeks ago. Now, is the back end going to look a lot stronger? Sure, it's going to
Yes.
be 4.25. No, we're going to sell that one.
Okay,
but we're going to be at like 4.25, like maybe a little bit, maybe like 4.5
Okay.
once it's all said and done. So on the
Nice.
back end. So that's going to be good, and that's why we decided to go for it. But it's much riskier. But
Would you keep something like that? Say
I
say
don't
those
think
same
I would.
numbers. Would you keep it?
I don't think I would, just
Okay.
because the turnover. Because once you get to that, you can call it size.
Yeah,
Once you
yeah.
get to that price point, you're also looking at a different size,
Yes.
right?
And a different.
And the turnover,
Yeah.
the kind of clients that you're probably looking at, or like tenants that you're probably looking
Yeah.
at, $500,000 tenants. I mean, they're expecting a different kind of level of quality.
Yeah.
And I don't think that we're in that. At least our business model right now is
Is
not
in
in a
that
strategy
level.
to like
Yeah.
keep something like that.
But also the turnover cost might be a lot less because the tenants are going to be a lot better,
They
treat the
take
house
care of
right.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
especially
agree.
paying that much in rent, they're going to kind of treat the house like their own. You would think.
Could be, but I mean, just say they stay there for 2 years and you have to paint.
Oh, that would
Ooh, yeah.
But there's no. I don't know. I feel
Because you're also not gonna
Yeah.
you're not gonna not paint on a $500,000 house.
Yeah.
But you gotta paint the whole thing.
And now you're 12 grand in paint, 10 grand in paint if it's a 3,000, 4,000.
So like the cash flow still has to make sense, right? Because
Right.
like if you get a loan on $400,000 and your mortgage is I don't know $2,500,
Yeah. Now,
what you
what
can
if
rent
you're
it
in-
for?
I was gonna say, what if you're in a good area and it's a 1,800 square foot house and they're 400 grand? Because there's a lot of those out there too. You're in the 1,800 square feet.
Yeah, but you're
3 bed,
still
2
then looking
bath,
at like the
the
mortgage.
higher end.
You're still looking at the mortgage on that.
I agree. Yeah.
Right?
Your
Like even
mortgage
at the
could be
smaller
21.
size, and maybe that makes sense if there's like if that neighborhood or that particular area is really appreciating, then that's a gamble.
Okay.
Right, because like I mean, it's not a sure thing. You're holding on to a high mortgage.
Yes.
People maybe are like really pushing to be in that neighborhood, so you're gambling on hoping that that person is seeing the appreciation of that neighborhood, and they're
Yeah.
like, "We're staying here for 5-7 years,"
Yeah.
and you just scored yourself a good rock.
A good tenant.
yeah,
Yeah.
a good tenant.
Yeah. How
So,
about you?
so for me, my investing has changed a little bit as far as cash flow. So when I first started, I was just going after cash flow, cash flow, cash flow.
Yeah.
You know, and then I bought a bunch, and then the cash flow started coming in Petersburg. The house's cash flow is crazy. Now they're more maintenance, more headaches, but they still cash flow. So now I'm pivoting a little bit that the property doesn't necessarily have to cash flow as long as those other ones cash flow and are bringing in money, because then I can, you know, be a little riskier with my investments per se. Buy a $200,000 house. I mean, granted, they'll still cash flow a tiny bit, but one turnover, 1 month vacant, maybe 2 months vacant, and wipe the cash flow.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of going for those bread and butter houses now, and I can see myself in 5 years if I were to buy the house that Carlos bought, maybe keeping it just as a risky investment play where I'm going for it appreciate, turn that $450,000 house in 5 years to 600,000. I don't know.
And the depreciation on that too.
Yeah.
Very nice.
And the depreciation is what they're discounting off of like your taxes that are not taxes, but like your income that they're kind of looking at to tax you on. It eventually gets kind of taken away. I think the rate's at like
that's like a whole other
27.5%.
segment right there, because a lot of people don't know you depreciate your house every year. Really, on paper it appreciates, but on tax paper it depreciates.
Yeah, it doesn't mean your house literally is falling apart and it only lasts 27 and a half years.
Yeah.
And you could write off it over 27 and a half years.
Yeah.
So.
And most people aren't keeping it that long, but
Exactly. Yeah. You're keeping it 10, 15, 20 years, then you 1031 and then something else.
Yeah.
I mean, you can go wherever you really want to go.
And to Dylan's point, obviously he's like changed strategies, and so has Daryl, right? Like you were flipping a lot at the very beginning, and now you've kind of transitioned over to like rentals and short-term stuff and getting into like long-term stuff. For me, it's kind of been the same thing, but I started having a W-2.
Yes.
Right? Like when you start having a W-2, you can kind of bank on buying those like $300,000, $400,000 houses, because if something goes wrong, or if you need to make up the difference, or you need to pay that mortgage, you can still rely on your
W-2 to make your family
to make it whole, right? Like to still hold on to your loans, pay those off, and just kind of continue rolling. But as we've transitioned, as my family has transitioned from both of us having W-2s into doing this full time, we're not doing that as much. We're kind of like drawing back, and we're being a little bit more aggressive, to your point of like the $125,000 to $175,000 acquisition kind of price, and then looking at the back end of like low 200, say 225, up to like close to 300.
Well, you got to think, even in a down market, a $200,000 house has never gone down more than $20,000-$30,000.
Yeah.
Now your $300,000-$400,000 houses, they drop $50,000 and $80,000.
Yeah.
Especially back in 2008, 2010.
Yeah.
They dropped $80,000, $50,000, $80,000, $100,000. All the houses that were 150 to 200, they didn't drop but 10 or 20 grand.
Yeah, because if you use the concept of economies of scale, right? Like that percentage is a lot larger on like a $500,000 house than like a $200,000.
But it's also reversed, so the equity buildup is a lot more on those higher houses too, as well.
Correct. Yeah.
So that's why it's a big gamble, right? Like you just don't know.
Yeah, it's a bigger risk. So if the market falls, you'll lose more. If the market goes up, you'll gain more. Yeah. For the most part, depending on the market, of course.
And that's why to Dylan's point from earlier, just like how he's been transitioning and can see himself later doing that, like getting into those kind of positions. It's just from like building himself up, like building the cash reserves, building the cash flow, like building himself up so that he can take those risks, so that he can possibly have a big upside of appreciation. Now, a lot of the older investors that we know, like that's what they've done, right? Like maybe they bought 10 years ago and the houses were 200 and now they're 400, right? But like these guys, like that's what they buy now. Like they buy those, like, okay, I'm gonna buy for $300,000. But again, it's because they have that cash flow that's come in. They've kind of built their strong base. So like as a newer investor, I mean, I'd probably suggest going into the Baltimores, the Petersburgs. Now you're gonna have a thicker skin. Like you're gonna have a certain kind of tolerance.
You're gonna deal with a lot of problems. But if you could deal with them, you could probably deal with any tenant.
You probably do.
And I mean, it's like Dylan. I remember 5 years ago when I met you, Dylan. I mean, you weren't buying anything over $100,000.
Yeah.
$100,000 was max that he was spending, and now over the last couple of years, he's kind of up that to transition into the. So you can start here, but you can move your way up to that. Just depends on how quickly you want to move.
It depends on where you are, right? Like again, if you have like a W-2 job, then you have a different door that you're going to enter through, or can enter through, right? You'll maybe have more options. There are people out there that right now that maybe don't have any kind of options. They have $2,000 when they're first getting started. Sure, they have a job and they have like money coming in, but they don't have that much to like invest in, right? But there's strategies for that too, right? Like, can you source your own deal?
Source your own deal. That's huge. If you can source your own deal, you will find money to fund it. I can promise you that. Especially if you have a deal, like a good deal.
You could also wholesale it as well and make a big big chunk of change, and then use that turn two to 10,000. Then that 10,000 could be.
So that's how I started.
Yeah.
I wholesaled. I didn't get into jump right into flipping or buying and renting or any of that. I wholesaled my first 4 deals in order to get $30,000 to then now invest.
Okay, so you started wholesaling.
I did.
Then you started flipping? Did you flip?
I started flipped my first 2, and then I started keeping and burning.
Okay, so the way that you got money coming in
I
was
took
by
that
wholesale.
$3,000 and I went and bought as many signs as I could buy and put on every stop sign in my city or county
Oh,
that
yeah,
I could.
yeah.
And I got my first 4 deals in 30 days, and I was hooked instantly because I made $30,000 in 30 days.
So does that
And
strategy still work today?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. That would work.
But
at
you have to
any-
have the hustle.
You gotta have the hustle
in the
'cause
blood.
You have to go on appointments, and you have to, because once you get that, you're gonna get a ton of phone calls, and now it's up to you to dictate how that phone call goes.
Yeah.
Are you getting to the table to make the deal happen, or are you just having a phone conversation
Yeah.
and then hanging up?
Now, some people have the reps. Like you come from sales, right?
I came from sales,
Some
so
people
that
don't
helped.
come from sales, but you'll never get that experience unless you're getting in front or on the
Yes.
phone with these people. So get the reps in.
I mean, you gotta think. I don't know about y'all, but I look at anywhere from 5 to 10 houses a week, and I put in offers 5 to 10 times, and I get 5 to 10 no's every single week
Yeah.
until I finally get a yes.
Yeah.
And then it starts again, and 5 to 10, and then I get
Yeah, we get
another.
rejected a lot.
Yeah, oh, a lot. You gotta
It
have
takes
thick
a
skin,
while,
like we said.
especially in this market.
Yeah.
It's hard to get
Yeah.
it accepted.
And we all came from a different spot to where I came from having little to no money. Dylan came, he went straight into flipping.
Yeah, straight
And
into
then
flipping.
Carlos, I mean,
And then I had a W-2, so I
Yeah.
had like money that was coming in, and so we were just kind of like buying turnkey ready stuff. That's really so. We first started with foreclosures. So foreclosures, a couple foreclosures, but that was a long time ago. It was over 10 years ago. And then we bought our first personal single family home, and then we started buying like turnkey stuff until we decided to eventually be like, all right, there's a smarter way than just like
yeah.
throwing $30,000 at this house and just kind of getting it and still needing to do some sort of improvements in order to rent it out. So like we've all come from very different, and that kind of reflects with our strategies too. I feel like,
Yep.
right? Because like I feel like I started with $100,000 houses, $150,000 houses.
Yeah.
Like Dylan, because he had to like build up too, right? I mean you're like a prime example of like, I'm gonna fix stuff on my own.
Yeah.
I'm gonna YouTube
I
it.
started in construction, so I kind of knew
Yeah.
the
Where to
day to day
go.
how to do it. So I bought my first one for $20K in Petersburg. And
That's awesome.
Do you still have it?
I still have that one.
Dude, what is it
The
valued
cash
at?
flow is like crazy. I refinanced it. I refinanced it a year later, and it priced for 45. So I got all my money out plus 10,000 on that one,
And then you're getting how much?
and then I'm getting $650 a month on a mortgage that's $303.
Nice.
So this is like free money because he got all of his money back already.
And this specific tenant had no repairs the whole year.
How long ago was that? How long ago was
That was 5 years ago.
that? 5 years
Yeah.
ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the other cool thing is we all started in different phases of our life.
Yeah.
Like Dylan, you went what age were you when you got started?
Yeah,
20.
20 is when I bought my first
20
one.
years
That's
old.
20.
Like, gosh, I couldn't imagine if I started at 20.
Yeah.
I opened the business when I was 27.
27.
27 years old. Yeah.
27.
Still a lot younger than
I
most
had
people,
a
too.
6-month pregnant wife at home.
That'll do it to you.
That's-
So if you need motivation,
Yeah.
get a girlfriend.
It will motivate you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
How old were you?
So like 20?
You bought your first one at 20?
Yeah,
That's
it's a
awesome.
foreclosure. I was
That you
I was
lived
like
in?
20. No.
Oh,
I just bought
rental.
it. It was like
That's
it was like 3. It needed some work.
So you
Then I did
renting?
it with my dad.
Were you renting your own house, like renting out?
No, I was
live?
still with my parents.
Oh, you're still living with your parents.
Yeah,
so
I'm
you
still
can
with
live
my
with your parents and still buy a rental
Yeah,
property.
yeah.
No shame in that.
Take your money and invest. Invest in your future.
Invest. But yeah, and then eventually it just kind of turned into like, okay, so how do we put money into it? Because we were getting like full-time jobs. I was still young at the time, so I didn't have like a full-time like profession. And then once we had some money coming in, we were like, all right, well, we know that this is the right path to go in.
Yeah.
Because say for example, we'll get into all this in future videos, but like
Yeah.
I had an uncle, I had a dad who was already investing in real estate, and then I also had my godfather who had a construction company. So like I saw the commotion,
Yeah.
right? Like I saw how it was improving their lives and like the cash flow and that kind of thing. And then I also was seeing firsthand like the construction side.
Yeah.
You were
Yeah.
also seeing the construction side like
Yeah.
firsthand. You were part of it. You were like seeing your dad and his teams. And like,
Yeah, I was working on my dad's crews, and they would wake up at 6 a.m. and work till 6 p.m. And so on summers with college, I would just work with them, and it was brutal, really long days. But I learned a lot and kind of kicked me, got me started.
And then you
See,
were
I'm the opposite. I have no construction background. I have nobody in my family ever owned a business. Never owned a rental property, never owned but a primary house, and that's it. So I came from knowing absolutely nothing to just being in sales and learning the hustle of sales. And where I was at, I was getting commission. I was only commission based, so you eat what you kill.
yeah.
So guess what? I took that same mindset into real estate, and it just went full speed ahead.
Yeah, that's hustle.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
all it is.
yeah.
Gen H, baby.
Gen A. Gen A. Exactly. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so I guess we'll kind of end with what is the most important advice when conducting your rental market analysis?
That's a good one.
Some good advice.
So my best advice is numbers never lie. If your numbers do not work on paper, they're not going to work in the house. No matter what you do, no matter how you think you can cut costs, none of that's going to matter. Numbers never lie. Bottom line.
I would say make sure you pinpoint what the ARV is, because if you're doing a rental and you're planning on refinancing it,
After repair value.
Yeah, oh, yeah,
ARV
ARV
is after repair value. So once it's all done, what that price would be.
so, and if you're off by a lot on that, you're not going to get your money back out. And if you have a hard money loan or private money loan on that, you're not going to pay off that private money lender.
Yeah.
So just got to be very careful in that sense. But there's easy ways to do it. You look on Zillow, look at recently sold, talk to a realtor. What will this house sell for when it's done? Stuff like that.
And those are real mistakes. Like how much is the most you've left? By it could have been a miscalculation or the ARVs changed or whatever.
Yeah, or a bad appraisal, that happens too.
A bad
The
appraisal
appraiser
does
goes out
happen.
there, but all they do is walk in for 5 minutes, take a few pictures, and then bring it back to their office. And
I mean,
you know?
explain to them the appraisal process.
Yes.
It's someone's opinion.
Yeah,
That's all
It really is.
Right.
I mean, it's an algorithm and they plug information in, but that person that's plugging it in is like,
They're
okay, the grade of this house based on the
Yeah.
different pictures I've seen, I think it's a A+. Great,
Yes.
we all want that. But then sometimes it'll be like, oh, yeah, it's not as clean,
This
or
is
the
so
tenant, the
hard.
tenant's not as clean that's
Ah,
in it,
that's
or
good
like
too.
things like
Yeah.
that, and then you'll get marked down to like a B-.
Yeah, that's why I stopped getting appraisals done when tenants moved in. I would get the appraisal done before.
yeah, I
they
try and
moved
do
in.
that too.
Yeah.
Because the cleaner the house, the more that appraiser
Yeah.
could up my value because of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I also, if there is a tenant in there, I actually call my tenants and say, hey, if
Yes.
insurance is coming, clean the place up, and I'll give you $50 off the rent. So in that, because I mean that could be an extra $5,000 in value if the appraisal sees it all clean, it's nice smelling. They'd be like, oh, this is a nice place, rather than there's junk outside, junk all over the floor. They can't even see the hardwood floors. It can really make a difference between their opinion and what you can pull out in the end.
And you'd probably pay a cleaning company for them. I mean,
Yeah.
come down to it, I'd pay $200 for get a cleaning company to clean your place.
Yeah. So my advice would be for a rental market analysis is confidence, right? So, and what I mean by that is, what can you do to build your confidence in your analysis of the house, right? Whether it's the neighborhood, the street, so that's why at the very, very beginning, I mentioned practice. Get the reps in, practice, look at stuff on the MLS, whether that's Zillow, whether that's Trulia, whether that's Redfield, wherever that is. Look at houses, pull those houses, and get comfortable with the way that you're analyzing your deals, so that you can go in with confidence and be like, all right, I'm buying this house at 100,000. It's gonna at the end be, the ARV is gonna be 150, and I know that because I've looked at 1,500 houses over the last year, and I've run my numbers, and I'm super confident in this, because once you buy it, trust me, once you buy your first house, the blood flowing through your body
You're gonna
is
be
gonna
nervous as
change.
hell.
Yeah, and if you're not confident in the numbers that you've run, you're going to all of a sudden start doing things that you shouldn't be doing. You're going to start to either over improve, you're going to start to doubt yourself, you're going to start, things that, again, a confident person might still consider, but they're going to stick to their laurels and be like, nope, I'm just going to stick with it. I think it's 150, I'm going to stay with 150. But the moment that you start losing confidence in yourself and the numbers that you've run and the reps that you've put in, you'll start to kind of waver. And then that's when you'll start to, I was going to flip it, or I was going to rent it is a good one. I was going to rent it, but now I don't know about my numbers, so I'm not going to rent it anymore. Now I'm going to sell it. Oh, I'm just going to sell it for 130. And then once you go in the market, nobody's bid on it in like 2 days, which isn't even a long time, but 2 days. I'm going to reduce the price again because you're not confident in the numbers that you've run.
Yeah. And what I was going to,
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, speaking on that, have 2 or 3 exit strategies. Don't just have one. If you're going into it thinking it could be a rental, go into it also thinking it could be a flip or a short term or so forth. Because the more exit strategies you have, the more your numbers, if something happens and you start to doubt yourself, now you have plan B, plan C.
Yeah.
And to his point, he said something about over improving. Make sure you don't under improve the house as well. Because even if you budget, let's say $50,000 for repairs, but you have to replace a joist in the floor or something that's starting to get rotted, and you don't want to do that up front, it can really bite you down the line where someone steps through the floor or a joist breaks or something like that, No, but then you literally have to but then you have to tear up the floors and rejack it up, and then you have to just deal with the tenants around you at the same time. And I guess what I'm saying is, when you're doing your repair value, make sure you add like an extra 15 to 20% to what you think it's going to cost.
Yes,
just
especially
to be
now.
safe.
From the time you analyzed the deal to the time you closed on the deal, flooring went up 30 cents a square foot.
Absolutely.
Lumber went up $2 a board. It's just
And one last thing that we'll end with is, we've been in the market for some time, right? We've obviously been through the changes that have happened in the market.
Yes.
Has there been anything that's changed in the way that you're analyzing your deal? Like, are you like, to your point just now, are you now factoring in an extra, instead of 15%, like an extra 20% for incidentals because prices of everything's going up? Or are you adding to your after repair value? Are you adding to your ARV because you're thinking maybe it's going to appreciate? Has anything like significantly changed from the way that you're analyzing deals, like every quarter or every 6 months now?
So I think you need to stay on the way the market's kind of twisting, because my analyzing today is completely different than it was last year. And last year was completely different than it was prior to 2020, because everything has changed, and it changes monthly. Interest rates are changing monthly. Prices on wood, everything, flooring, trim, siding. My siding, I just went and got siding. Who would have ever thought siding is oil-based, which guess what? Oil is through the roof right now. So my siding went up an extra like $600, which doesn't sound like a lot until 600 here, 600 there. Now we're $3,000 over budget. So
and then the labor increases on top of that.
Exactly. Because guess what? Gas prices went up, so my guys have to pay an extra $20 to get to the job site.
How is it changing for you? Have you like analyzed, or are you now analyzing deals differently?
Just not too differently, a little bit differently. The main difference is obviously a little more on the construction side. Also, if you're looking to refinance it, you got to look at where the mortgage rates will be at that time, or what you think they will be at that time of refinancing, because you could get screwed out of your cash flow, or even being able to refinance because you don't meet the debt service ratio, which is basically the rent has to cover the mortgage by a certain amount. So if the interest rates go up, that increases the mortgage, and then the banks aren't going to give you that loan. So you got to be careful with that. But multiple exit strategies is a way, you can sell it rather than keep it in that case. Also, you got to factor in, look at the rents around, and the way the rents are going, you shouldn't assume they're going up, but they could also go up and make that mortgage or that debt service ratio back up to normal.
And we'll cover debt service ratio. Right?
Yeah, because the mortgage will raise, but then the rent could raise $100 in 1 year, and bringing that up here, so you're still safe on that. So I don't know. It hasn't changed too much, but just, more cost on the repairs, and also look where interest rates will be in the future. And And I guess look how easy banks are lending, or what are they looking for to lend to you if they need that debt service ratio. If you're getting a conventional loan, they don't even care about the debt service ratio. They just care about your income and your W-2 income.
Yeah.
I was going to say another thing is the type of loans that we're getting are commercial loans, so it's the interest rates are a lot higher when you're playing in the rental field.
Yeah.
They're not just 3.5% like they are on your personal side. They're
Right.
usually looking at 4.5%, 5%
Yeah.
right now,
Yeah.
and it could be. I don't know. I just got a loan package on one I'm refining. We're looking at almost 6%.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So and that's that leads me to my point of like the way that I've changed my analysis is I tend to only want now like really short like
In and outs.
Yeah, like
In and
really
outs.
short in and outs because that's something that's more measurable or like I can control a little bit more because I can almost not everybody but like I can almost like predict where it's going to be in a month and a
Right.
half.
Yes.
If it's a bigger deal like the one that we just got a couple weeks ago, for that I need a bigger spread. Right?
Agreed.
If there's a bigger spread in there, then I can kind of weather to some degree the changes that might happen, right? I still want to go through that project as quickly as possible, you know, with the integrity of everything intact, but like it's for me it's like today for example, just today we went out and bought vanities, plumbing fixtures. We bought a bunch of stuff for a project that's probably not going to be done for another month, but I wanted to buy that stuff today because I know that I mean I've seen it in action. I've gone to the store and I'll see them changing the price on us.
Yes.
So for me, I want to buy all my stuff that is probably going to go up $20, and to your point, $600 here, $400 here, $300 here, and it's eventually going to be a $3,000 over budget scenario. So anything that I can use that I know it's a fixed cost. I know I need a new vanity. I know I need fixtures. I know I need lights. I know I need like that kind of stuff. Appliances. I'm just going to go ahead and order it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Daryl did something super smart at the end of last year. He just bought a bunch of appliances.
Yeah.
Why? Because he knew he was going to be putting in a bunch of appliances. And before GE, General Electric, mentioned that they were going to be having a price increase on all their appliances by 15%.
Yep.
So he went out and bought a bunch of appliances before the prices went up. Yep. So like these are the approaches that I'm taking because it's hard to really kind of control anything else with the market. So the way I'm analyzing it is just, okay, is it a quick in and out? Can I purchase everything? Is it a simple kind of project that I can go in and out of? I have a little bit of a I don't know if it's an advantage or disadvantage where I have my own guys where I have a handle on labor cost.
Yes.
Right? So my guys are gonna get paid the same whether it's this week, it's gonna be 6 months from they'll probably ask for a raise, but 6 months from now it's not gonna be too much different, right? So I have a little bit of control over that and like I can push on the speed of things to kind of save money, but I mean I'm just analyzing it a little bit differently because of my perspective, like right where I'm starting from.
So to sum it up, like overall, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, so you're speaking that you want to be in and out of properties, right?
Yeah.
Real quick, did that change from a year ago, or a year ago were you still trying to get in and out because you're on? So I guess it's uncertainty of the future, 6 months plus.
Yeah.
Were you uncertain of the future 6 months plus a year ago though, or were you?
No,
not
I guess that really hasn't changed in the way that I'm conducting my analysis.
Okay.
Yeah, I was still always kind of in and out. Now I feel like there's
More
a clock
pressure.
There's more pressure. Yeah.
So you see a downturn. No, I'm just kidding.
Another
The next episode of
Recession.
yeah, good.
But I was gonna say to sum it up, I'd say we're all have changed from a year ago on how we analyze deals.
Yeah.
Bottom line. I mean, now maybe some a little less than others, or in certain areas less than others, but
Yeah.
overall, I don't think you could go wrong by over analyzing.
Yeah, you can't overanalyze, and I think that the more you analyze your market, the more, as you have more time in the game, the more options you start to create, right? Like he was, Daryl was saying, I mean, you start with maybe just rentals, maybe just flips, maybe just short terms, now there's long term. You start to expose yourself to more options. So as you're analyzing it, you're starting to add more possibilities, more doors for you to get out of, right? So that's the rep thing. That's the talking to more people. That's the listening into what our conversations on a weekly basis, and just kind of exploring the possible options that are out there. So
Yeah, because we meet weekly to talk about these things.
Yeah.
And sometimes even twice a week because they
Yeah.
change so often. That
Yeah.
It's really nice to be able to get in a big group and be able to discuss these things because we're all going through the same struggles, the same positives. Because, like, let's be real, houses are selling for more than they ever did
Yeah.
a year ago. So there are positives in there as well that you can look forward to. But you got to look forward to the negatives on prices.
You gotta
going
get
up.
ready. You gotta get ready for
Yeah.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us. Gen H, episode 1.
Yeah. I'm telling Dylan, hit me.